They say betrayal comes from those closest to you, but nothing could have prepared me for this. After 23 years of marriage, one phone call shattered the life I thought I knew. A confession that wasn't just a mistake, but a carefully planned betrayal. As I uncovered the truth, the lies cut deeper than the act itself, leaving me to pick up the pieces of a family torn apart. This is the story of heartbreak, resilience, and the choice to rebuild when trust is gone forever. It's funny how we can look at our lives and think we've built something indestructible. 23 years of marriage, 2 decades of love, laughter, and shared dreams. We weren't just a couple, we were a team of family. Our kids, and now grandkids, gave life a sense of completeness. Everything seemed solid, like a castle we'd carefully constructed stone by stone. But castles aren't immune to cracks. I remember sitting in our sunlit living room, looking at the photo of our last vacation together, thinking how lucky I was. Little did I know, the walls were already crumbling behind my back. I'd always believed trust was the foundation of any strong relationship. We trusted each other with everything, or so I thought. The little routines, the goodnight kisses, even the occasional disagreements felt like threads weaving us closer. But looking back, I wonder, did I miss something? Was there a flicker of doubt in her eyes or hesitation in her voice? They say hindsight is 20/20, and now I see things I wish I hadn't ignored. It's strange how you can feel blindsided by something that was happening right under your nose. The day everything changed started like any other. I was up early, fixing coffee while the house slowly stirred awake. She had that same laugh when she joked with me, that same touch as she handed me my cup. It wasn't until later, when she left for a trip with her sister, that I started noticing the unease creeping in. A strange feeling settled in my chest, a subtle warning I brushed off as paranoia. Maybe I just loved her too much to think she was capable of betraying me. Or maybe I didn't want to see the truth. Looking at our wedding album now, it feels like a different lifetime. The photos tell the story of 2 people deeply in love, ready to face the world together. But those smiles, frozen in time, don't tell the whole truth. They don't show the secrets or the lies that would come later. If only I'd known then what I know now, would I have done anything differently? That's the question I can't stop asking myself. It's also the question that keeps pulling me deeper into this story. Losing weight wasn't just about shedding pounds. It was about reclaiming myself. 80 kilograms, a lifetime of excuses and self-neglect gone. I did it for my health, yes, but more than that, I wanted to feel worthy of her love again. I'd been so focused on providing, being the steady rock, that I forgot what it meant to truly live, to feel desirable. Every kilometer I ran and every meal I resisted was a silent promise to our marriage. I'm here, fighting for us. But sometimes, no matter how much you fight, the battlefield shifts in ways you can't control. I thought my transformation would reignite something in us, that maybe she'd see me in a new light. I tried everything to rekindle the spark. Surprise date nights, weekend getaways, even heartfelt conversations we'd been too busy to have before. At first, it seemed to work. She'd smile at me like she used to, laugh at my dumb jokes. And for a while, I believed we were getting back to the core of who we were. But now I wonder, was it all a mask? Was her warmth a distraction for the cold distance growing between us? The thing about self-improvement is that it forces you to confront everything you've ignored, even in others. As I became more confident, I started noticing cracks in her stories. Late nights at work that didn't quite add up, conversations that felt half-finished, and a subtle shift in how she touched me, more out of habit than affection. I didn't want to believe it, but my gut whispered truths I wasn't ready to hear. It's ironic, isn't it? You spend years ignoring your body, and the moment you tune in, it starts telling you what you don't want to know. I'd done all this for her, for us, and yet I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own marriage. Was I imagining things, or was there something she wasn't telling me? The weight I'd lost seemed to have shifted, settling invisibly on my shoulders instead. Every compliment she gave felt rehearsed, every glance too calculated. I told myself it was in my head, that the love we'd built couldn't just evaporate. But deep down, I knew. Something was changing, and I was about to find out how far it would go. The call came out of nowhere. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through old family photos when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen, and I smiled. It wasn't unusual for her to check in during her trips. But the voice on the other end wasn't the one I knew. It was trembling, hesitant. "I need to tell you something," she said, and my stomach knotted. Those words never lead to anything good. She sounded fragile, like someone who'd already braced for impact. I didn't know it yet, but that call would shatter the life I thought we had. Her words tumbled out in a rush, almost incoherent. Something about drinking too much, a bad decision, and a couple she'd met at a bar. I struggled to keep up, each word landing like a blow. "It didn't mean anything," she said, her voice breaking. "It just happened." I gripped the phone tighter, my mind racing. How does something like that just happen? I wanted to interrupt, to yell, to hang up, but I couldn't. Instead, I listened, frozen, as she begged for forgiveness. The woman I'd trusted with my soul was telling me she'd betrayed it. I didn't say much during that call. What could I say? My thoughts were a chaotic mess, confusion, disbelief, and a deep, gnawing pain I'd never felt before. She kept apologizing, swearing it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I didn't know what I was doing, she insisted, as if that somehow made it better. I sat there in silence, staring at the framed photo of us on the mantel. The smiles in that picture felt like a cruel joke now mocking me. Could one drunken night really unravel everything we'd built? When the call ended, I just sat there, unable to move. Her words echoed in my mind, looping endlessly. An accident, she called it. A mistake. But accidents don't usually come with that kind of guilt, do they? Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. All I knew was that my perfect marriage wasn't so perfect anymore. And for the first time, I started to wonder, was this really the whole story? I couldn't let it go. Something about her story didn't sit right. Her tone, the rushed explanations, the way she avoided specifics. It felt too rehearsed, too convenient. So I started digging, telling myself it was to find closure, to prove she was being honest. But deep down, I think I already knew. Late at night, when the house was silent, I searched for the pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Emails, social media, even her phone logs, things I'd never felt the need to look at before. What I found made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a drunken mistake. The breadcrumbs were all there. Messages exchanged with a couple weeks before the trip, a hotel booking that didn't match her itinerary, and cryptic notes saved in her phone. Piece by piece, the truth came into focus. She hadn't stumbled into this situation. She'd walked into it willingly, even excitedly. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the lies, the deception, the careful planning that went into orchestrating it all. I felt like a fool, like I'd been played in my own marriage. The woman I thought I knew had a side I'd never seen. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. Instead, she cried, her tears spilling like they could wash away the evidence. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, as if that excused it. She admitted to fantasizing about the experience for years, but claimed she thought it would stay just that, a fantasy. I was curious, and then it got out of control, she whispered, her words cutting deeper than any shout ever could. Every word felt like a knife, carving away the image of the life we'd built together. After that conversation, I stopped sleeping. The betrayal was no longer a single moment of weakness. It was a carefully constructed lie. I couldn't stop replaying her words in my head, the details she confessed, the ones I'd uncovered myself. It wasn't just her actions that haunted me. It was the realization that I'd trusted her blindly for so long. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the fact that I hadn't seen it coming. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead. Telling the kids was one of the hardest things I've ever done. How do you explain that the foundation of their childhood, the love story they grew up watching, was built on lies? I sat them down one by one, each conversation heavier than the last. Their faces mirrored my own emotions, confusion, anger, disbelief. Why was the question that kept coming up, and I had no answer. I'd always thought we'd shielded them from the worst of life's storms, but now I was the one dragging them into the chaos. Their mother's actions had shattered more than just my trust. Our family dinners became strained, awkward silences filling the space where laughter used to echo. They wanted to support me. I could see that, but they were torn. She was their mother, after all, and no matter how hurt they were, they couldn't just shut her out. I caught glimpses of their own internal struggles, one blaming her, another begging me to forgive, and one too quiet to say how he felt. It was a storm of emotions, and I was the one left trying to pick up the wreckage while holding back my own pain. The betrayal didn't just affect our family dynamic. It rewrote how we saw our past. Memories we once cherished felt tainted now. A photo of us on a family trip didn't just bring back nostalgia anymore. It came with questions. Was she already lying to us then? Was this perfect family just a facade? The grandkids didn't understand why Nana and Papa weren't together at Sunday dinners anymore. They asked questions with innocent eyes that made my chest tighten. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, but I could see their confusion, and it broke me. As days turned into weeks, I realized this wasn't just my battle. The ripple effects of her actions were tearing through everyone I loved. I tried to stay strong for them, to reassure them we'd get through this, but inside, I felt like I was drowning. The family I'd spent years building, the legacy I'd hoped to leave behind, was crumbling. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. But even in the midst of the pain, I started to see glimpses of clarity, signs that the only way forward might be to let go. Deciding to end the marriage wasn't a sudden moment. It was a slow, agonizing realization. For days, I wrestled with the idea, replaying every memory, every promise we'd made. I wanted to forgive her. I wanted to believe we could fix what was broken. But how do you rebuild something when the foundation is gone? Every time I looked at her, all I could see were the lies. The thought of staying felt like drowning, but leaving meant losing the life we'd built. Either way, it felt like I was being torn apart. Friends and family offered advice, most of it conflicting. Some said to fight for the marriage, to give her a second chance. Others told me to walk away and never look back. But none of them truly understood. They weren't there for the long nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd failed her somehow. Did I miss the signs? Could I have done more? The weight of those questions pressed down on me, even as I tried to convince myself that her choices were not my fault. When I finally told her I wanted a divorce, her reaction was a mix of disbelief and desperation. She begged me to reconsider, to go to counseling, to give her a chance to make things right. But I couldn't do it. Her promises felt hollow, her words like echoes in an empty room. It's not just about what you did, I told her. It's about what you destroyed. The look on her face broke me all over again, but I knew this was the only way. Staying would mean living in constant doubt, and I couldn't survive that. Filing for divorce was surreal, like signing away a part of my identity. The life we'd built together, the family we'd created, it all came down to a stack of papers and a signature. It felt final, but also strangely liberating. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. The road ahead was uncertain, and I knew it would be painful, but it also felt like a chance to start over. A chance to rebuild, not as half of a broken couple, but as someone who finally understood his own worth. The final conversation loomed over me like a storm cloud. I'd rehearsed what I wanted to say 100 times, but as I sat across from her, all my carefully planned words evaporated. She looked at me with eyes swollen from tears, her hands clasped tightly like she was holding on to the last thread of hope. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We can fix this." Her words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. But all I could think was, how do you fix something that's been shattered into so many pieces? She tried to explain again, her voice trembling with emotion. It was a mistake. I was lost. I never stopped loving you. But love shouldn't feel like this, I thought. Love isn't supposed to leave you questioning your own sanity. I told her as much, my tone calm but firm. "This isn't just about what you did," I said, echoing words I'd told myself over and over. "It's about how you planned it, how you lied to me while I was trying to give you everything." She broke down at that, her sobs filling the silence between us. For a moment, I hesitated. Seeing her like that, vulnerable, broken, brought back flashes of the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. I wanted to comfort her, to say it would all be okay. But the truth was it wouldn't be. The trust we'd built was gone, and without it, there was nothing left to hold us together. "I need to let you go," I said softly, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, but she didn't argue. Deep down, I think she knew it too. Walking away from that conversation felt like tearing off a part of myself. The woman I'd spent half my life with was now a stranger. As I closed the door behind me, I realized this wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the end of the life I thought we'd share forever. But even as the pain settled in my chest, a small part of me felt lighter. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, it felt like my life was truly my own. Her reaction after the divorce papers were served was a whirlwind of emotions. At first, there was anger, sharp words thrown my way in text messages and voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to answer. Then came the pleading. She tried to reason with me, sending long emails filled with apologies, promises to change, and memories of our happiest times. It felt like she was holding a mirror to our past, hoping I'd see a reflection worth saving. But all I could see was the crack running straight down the middle of it. She didn't stop there. She reached out to the kids, trying to rally them to her side, though they were still reeling from their own pain. Some of them were angry at her. Others tried to stay neutral, but the tension it created was undeniable. Family gatherings became smaller, quieter, as if the joy had been stripped away. I could see it in their eyes. This new reality was as foreign to them as it was to me. She kept saying she wanted to fix things, but her actions only seemed to dig the rift deeper. Despite everything, there were moments when her regret seemed genuine. Once, she called late at night, her voice trembling. "I don't know who I am without us," she said. I sat there in silence, gripping the phone, my mind torn between empathy and exhaustion. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her she'd find her way. But another part, the part she'd broken, reminded me that it wasn't my responsibility anymore. That realization hit harder than I expected. She wasn't my partner anymore. She was the person I had to let go of to heal. As weeks turned into months, the noise began to fade. Her messages became less frequent, her presence in my life a distant echo. The reality of living apart, of being separate, finally started to settle in. It was painful, yes, but also freeing in ways I hadn't anticipated. The life we'd shared was over, and though the scars remained, I could feel the weight lifting ever so slightly. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing. This chapter had ended, and it was time to start writing the next. Sitting alone in the quiet of my new home, I found myself looking back on everything. Our life together, the dreams we'd built, the way it all fell apart. It's strange how memories can feel so vivid and distant at the same time. I wanted to hate her, to erase her from my mind, but the truth is, she was a part of me for so long that forgetting her felt impossible. Instead, I tried to make peace with it. She was my past, but she didn't have to define my future. I often wondered if I should have seen it coming. Were there signs I ignored, warnings I dismissed because I was too focused on being the husband, the provider, the man she needed me to be? The truth is, I don't know. I only know that I gave her my best, and it wasn't enough. But that's not a reflection of my worth. It's a reminder that no one is perfect, no matter how much we want to be. That realization was as liberating as it was painful. The hardest part was accepting the ripple effects her betrayal had on everyone we loved. Our kids were trying to move on, but the strain was still there, a quiet tension lingering in their voices. The grandkids, thankfully, were too young to understand what had happened, and for that, I was grateful. I wanted to shield them from the ugliness, to let them hold on to the innocence of believing in happy endings. But for me, those endings no longer felt real. All I had now was the hope that someday, things might feel normal again. Despite the pain, there was a quiet strength in starting over. Each day felt like a small step towards something new, something unknown. The future was still blurry, but it was mine to shape one decision at a time. For the first time in years, I wasn't living for someone else. I was living for me. And though I carried the scars of what had happened, they were a part of my story, not the whole of it. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was mine, and that was enough. The truth is, life doesn't pause for heartbreak. The world keeps spinning, even when yours feels like it's come to a screeching halt. In the beginning, that thought crushed me. How could everything move on when I was stuck in place? But as time passed, I began to see it differently. Life moving forward wasn't cruel. It was a gift. It was a chance to start again, to rebuild not just what was broken, but something entirely new. Slowly, I realized that the only way out of the darkness was to keep walking, one small step at a time. I'll admit, I still have moments where the past sneaks up on me. A song on the radio, a photograph tucked away in a drawer, even the smell of her favorite perfume. They all bring back flashes of what was. But instead of letting those memories pull me under, I've learned to see them as reminders of how far I've come. Each one is a testament to my resilience, proof that even when life knocks you down, you can find a way to stand back up. It's not easy, but it's possible. And that's enough. There's a certain beauty in the scars we carry. They tell our stories, mark our struggles, and remind us of the battles we've fought. My scars are no different. They're a part of me now, woven into the fabric of who I am. And though they were born from pain, they've taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. I've learned the importance of self-worth, of trusting my instincts, and of knowing when to let go. Most importantly, I've learned that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward anyway. As I close this chapter of my life, I feel a bittersweet sense of closure. The pain hasn't disappeared, but it's no longer the center of my world. In its place, there's hope. Hope for a future that's lighter, freer, and filled with possibility. This isn't the ending I wanted, but it's the one I got. And in some strange way, I'm okay with that, because endings are also beginnings. And now it's time for mine.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.